In New York City, not long ago, a man just stepped off a ship that brought him here from Scotland 2 days ago. This man is none other than Cable. Cable looks around at the teeming mass of people and he wonders if they could be saved. Cable, aka Nathan Dayspring Summers, is beginning to learn a few things about surviving in New York. Elsewhere in northern Canada, we find none other than Wolverine as he's kicking back, enjoying a cigar. Wolverine receives an incoming transmission from Department H, which is basically the Canadian equivalent of the CIA. They inform Wolverine about an unknown incoming threat that requires a specialist. All they know is there's some unknown creature on a rampage, so Wolverine suits up and gets ready to mobilize towards the disturbance. Elsewhere in the New York Public Library, we find Cable as he scours over 2 millennia of historical records. See, in the era Cable comes from, it's already too late for mankind. So Cable is attempting to learn everything he can to see if humanity can be saved. He learns of the 20th century, the Industrial Revolution, the Great Depression, two world wars, followed by a long Cold War, the space race, followed by nuclear proliferation. So much triumph and tragedy, all in less than 100 years. As Cable talks to the librarian, he hears a disturbance outside as apparently a jewelry exchange across the street has just been robbed. While standing among the denizens of New York City, admiring their life and spirit, Cable knows a crisis is a crisis in any era. Cable uses his telekinetic powers to find the source of the disturbance, as his mother is a clone of Jean Grey, so he does have telepathy under his belt. Cable tracks the source of the disturbance and he finds a vault that seems to have an advanced explosive device wired to it. But next thing Cable knows, he's ambushed by none other than the Vulture. As Cable's on the floor, he looks at Vulture and says, "Nice outfit, old man." Now Vulture replies, "I'll demonstrate how old I am," as he knocks Cable into the vault wall. Vulture flies off with a fistful of jewels, while the bomb detonates in close proximity to Cable. As Vulture flies off with his ill gotten gains, Cable is lost in the rubble, but luckily he's found by a cop. Elsewhere in Moose Jaw, we find this hawking mass named Devon Cray as he's laying waste to the area. Now, Devon Cray is from the future, the same era that Cable is from. Apparently, Cray's entire fire team was firesighted by one man named Dayspring. A few genetic alterations later, and Devon Cray was ready to follow Dayspring through time. Now, there's a bounty on Cable's head, but that bounty means nothing. All that matters is the blood right, a warrior's ritual of balancing the scales. In other words, cold heart revenge. As Devon Cray lays waste to the area, he's confronted by none other than Wolverine. Wolverine lays into Cray with his adamantium claws, but Cray easily swats Wolverine aside. As Craig closes in on Wolverine, Wolverine counters, knocking him into some electrical wires. Now, this shorts Cray out and subsequently incapacitates him. But back in New York City, outside the jewelry exchange, Cable has been rescued by a cop by the name of Franklin Rhodes. Franklin tries to take Cable to the hospital, but Cable refuses. Franklin makes a connection with Cable as he can look him in his eyes and tell a man that's been through hell just like he has. Franklin takes Cable back to his house, and Franklin sets him up with some artillery as well as a beer and a place to lay his head. Meanwhile, in Department H, Canada, a simple neutralization threat has become a scientific opportunity as the Canadian scientists seek a way to weaponize and control Devon Cray. Now, Wolverine warns these guys that this is a really bad idea, but these guys don't listen. But Wolverine doesn't let up, letting them know they have no idea what they're dealing with. But these scientists say they've taken every precaution possible. But Wolverine knows that's a load of bullshit, as we all know how these political bureaucrat types like to bypass rules and regulations. 1 week later, as Wolverine is getting a debriefing on the situation, he realized that these guys are already planning to field test the damn thing. Now, Wolverine's contact is actually agreeing with him at this point because they've learned that this thing is most likely from the future. But back in New York City, we see Franklin as he's running his side business, which is taking firearms off the street from people that really don't need them. Cable thinks back to a past that haunts him and a future that awaits him. When thinking of the past and the future, Cable thinks to himself he can barely tell the difference at this point. For all intensive purposes, they are the same thing. He often wished he could forget the sounds of war, to simply put the screams out of his mind, but he never can. As Cable thinks about his dark past, he asks Frank about his time in S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, Franklin is surprised by that, but he doesn't even ask Cable how he knows. He simply tells Cable that his time in S.H.I.E.L.D. was really dark. A lot of Black Ops and Guerrilla Ops mission. They were the Shadow Company. Their parameters were simple: ferret out the enemy and win by attrition. They knew the score, and they weren't under any illusions about what they have done. Those were the wars that you didn't want to talk about at parties. In fact, the term war was never used to describe their involvement. A lot of blood, fire, and death. Everything in the name of promoting and preserving democracy. Back at Department H, in the dead of night, we see Devon Cray as he's still in stasis. But next thing you know, brain activity is detected. Brain activity at 63%, then 98%. Then next thing you know, Devon Cray wakes up. Elsewhere, back at Wolverine's pad, one of his alarms goes off, letting him know that a hull breach has been detected. The rooftop gave little resistance to his strange weapons. He's much better equipped to do battle in the 20th century. Internal tracking devices come online and reach out in every direction. His memory banks are encoded with Dayspring's specific genetic pattern. If he's anywhere on this earth, Devon Cray will find him. When Wolverine gets back to Department H, he finds that Cray has escaped. A lot of people died, several casualties. No one could stop him. But back in New York, Queens, we see Cable and Franklin at a bar as they're tossing a couple back. Cable and Franklin get pretty sloshed as they're walking back home towards Franklin's house. But next thing Cable knows, his sensory abilities start going off as Devon Cray tries to kill him with a devastating explosion. Franklin and Cable mobilize as suddenly Franklin isn't so drunk anymore. Franklin and Cable make a tactical retreat, that way they can arm themselves and gain much better combat positioning. But as the two gentlemen arm themselves, unfortunately, Devon Cray is on that ass. Cray lays down massive artillery fire as he's easily able to spot the group with his infrared upgrades, compliments of Department H. But as Cable is but as Cray is attempting to flatten everything in his wake, he's ambushed by none other than Wolverine. Now, although Wolverine got the better of him last time, this time Cray is ready for him and he's much better equipped. Cray proceeds to grab Wolverine and then blast a hole through him. Cable spots Wolverine and tries to read his mind. Cable realizes Wolverine has a healing factor as he picks up two sets of thoughts, one Canaanite and the other a primitive feral animal. Franklin runs out there in order to draw the creature's fire and buy Cable some time. Franklin unfortunately gets hit with several rounds through the chest, but Cable manages to hit Cray and put his ass right through a wall. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be enough as Devon Cray keeps coming, and he has nothing but blood on his mind as he grabs Cable by the neck. As Cable welcomes Devon to the 20th century, he blasts him with an optic beam while Wolverine sneaks up from behind and beheads the creature. Cable goes to check on Franklin, but unfortunately, Franklin fades away as his bullet wounds are just too severe. Later, Wolverine would confront Cable, letting him know that the feds picked up what was left of their boy's corpse. Cable tells him that's fine, now why don't you get out of here? But Wolverine says he knows it's hard losing someone, but you better put that attitude in park before you end up needing another arm. Cable and Wolverine seemingly get ready to go at it, but the two decide not to kill each other, at least for the day. Cable would go on to bury his good friend in Franklin Roads. He's laid a friend to rest. It was his first friend, but it will not be his last in this strange era. For this is only the beginning.